All right, hey everybody. Welcome to the Church Digital Podcast. We're doing a live recording here of episode 331. I'm excited about the conversation coming up. Actually, I'm getting some action on this conversation in our WhatsApp channel, talking about the role of ministry and really the lack of women that are currently speaking and leading in digital ministry circles. And so we've got a lineup of some ladies coming in. As a matter of fact, Amanda Souza said hello in chat earlier just a second ago. I want to give a shout out to some of the other people hanging out with us in chat. So Edith, Steve, appreciate you coming in. Amanda as well, and any of the others that are out there. We'll be keeping an eye on chat. So feel free to ask questions as we're going through this. Engage in chat. We'll be sure to see you and dialogue with you through this conversation. I want to say up front, talking about women in ministry, I don't have answers. I'm probably more of the problem than the solution towards this, and we do want to draw attention not only to the issue and the problem of what's here, and I don't know that we can solve the problem today, but maybe start to take some practical steps towards how can we really engage and involve more women in digital ministry moving forward. And so looking forward to this conversation. Before we get there, up here, right there, point finger that way. It's so hard for me to do this backwards. I don't know if you have that problem, but we have our digital missionary conference coming up here April 2nd. Missionary.digital is the website. It is a free conference. Maybe it's 7 hours in time, 6 or 7 hours at this point. We've got keynotes. There's been so much popularity centered around our breakouts. We had to add a whole other breakout session for this to allow people opportunities to engage in the breakouts. But here's the cool thing. We just passed 500 registered people. We're hoping for 1,000 for the conference. We've just registered 500 people. And the really cool thing, 56 nations. I literally counted them in the database today, one by one. Went through the entire spreadsheet. 56 different nations represented in those 500 people that are at the conference. And so we're literally seeing a gospel, a digital, global movement happening right here, starting right here through the Church Digital. And so if you're interested in signing up on that conference, missionary.digital, it's coming up April 2nd, right around the corner. So register on demand. If you're not able to catch it live, register anyway, because you've got to register to see it on demand. And so register, please. Get connected and stay tuned to what's happening at the Church Digital. And so I tell you what, I'm gonna move off the commercial aspects of this and bring on the women, the ladies, for this conversation here. We're already getting some shout outs here. Pastor Susie may be a little biased in this conversation. We'll draw attention to this here in a little bit. Yo, so pumped for this conversation. Ian Kirk, who's not as biased into this, but good topic both digitally and physically. Ian's a long-term friend. So is Pastor Susie, which actually, let me introduce first off into the conversation, Amanda Souza, who knows Pastor Susie relatively well. Amanda, you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, well, hello. I am Amanda. Pastor Susie is my husband, so that's why I know him decently well. Hopefully more than decently, actually. We've been married for over 10 years now. But yeah, we started a church called XP Church. Well, it wasn't called that when we started it, but it is. We just changed the name of the church this past year. But yeah, so we lead together a church for gamers online called XP Church, and I am the executive lead pastor, so I very much work alongside my husband, and I basically do all the executing of the things in a very, very short way, but that is a little bit of me.
Yeah, so basically, Susie's the pretty face, and you get all the work done. That's pretty much how, when I look at XP Church, that's what I think about. You're running the thing in the background, making Susie look good. So appreciate that. And xpchurch.com, more information over there. Glad to have you here, Amanda. Nicole Howard, next up on my screen. Nicole's been doing a lot of work with the Church Digital for years now. It feels like. Nicole, maybe you want to tell them a little bit about you and your ministry?
Yes. So, hey, Nicole Howard here, Gen Z, Gen Alpha Catalyst. I do a lot of stuff, as Jeff said, but the primary stuff is youth and kids. So I do have Pathfinders. With the support of this network, we were able to launch that, which is global. Anybody can use it anywhere. So kids fully have access to Jesus in the digital realm, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I'm really enjoying being here as a digital missionary.
Awesome. Love that. It's been a lot of fun working with Nicole and exploring really digital discipleship at a global scale centered around Gen A and Gen Z. And, it's interesting. We've actually been having like a lot of kids and students, more the right word, high school kids starting to come into TCD. And I love my kids. My kids are that age. Not so much other people's kids. And so even learning from Nicole, like how to handle and do some of that. I clearly remember the moment in my life when God said, Jeff, you are not a youth pastor. And that was like a very audible moment for me. And so even beyond that, how are we embracing and working with these kids digitally? It's a fun part to be a part of. And also here globally, it's been a lot of fun to see Anne Bosarge's ministry really expand. Anne, I feel like I first met you when you were still at the church you were at for a while, and growing a digital ministry that actually kind of left the physical church and stood on its own, and now you're discipling people globally with a strong presence in Africa. And so, Anne, maybe tell them a little bit about your ministry.
Yeah, I'm Anne Bosarge, and I have the privilege to lead an organization called Digital Discipleship, and we work around the globe to reignite a passion for discipleship. So we do that in a couple of different ways. We do an online women's and men's ministry that is called Becoming More. We also do daily discipleship in the online chapel, and we actually have a digital forward child sponsorship organization where we put our discipleship into action through child sponsorship in Uganda. So we operate on Facebook primarily and WhatsApp as well.
Awesome. It's been so exciting to see that organization grow. And even as we've started the Church Digital extend globally and deal with contextualizations and things like that, it's been, we've brought Anne alongside to coach some of our leadership and learn from some of the work that she's doing at a global scale. And so as we're getting into this, I would love to draw in. It's interesting. Just now, Pastor D coming in, who's also a longtime friend of the Church Digital, just comes into the house. And so it was funny. I told Pastor D, I was like, probably should have had you come on this thing as well, because she is so vocal and so strong as a female pastor in House of His Glory as a digital church. Been doing this a decade almost, if not more. And so you've got a lot of long-term women who are represented on this screen. But really, I would suggest maybe even this just open up the conversation. There's some difficulty, some hesitancy. I was telling Amanda actually before the convo, like before we started streaming, I book conferences, design the digital missionary conference. I book conferences all the time, and I am constantly like, who's out there in female space, who's doing something, and like men, I don't have to. I don't want to make this about me, but men, I don't have to look hard. women, I often find like I have to really dig in and dig through the weeds to try to find, do you know somebody? Do you know somebody? What's going on? To really start to get down where it's obviously a lot more of a, it feels like it's more male dominated ministry area. And I would even call out, I love my YouTube subscribers. Thank you for this. No guilt implied. YouTube tells me analytics wise that 97% of my subscribers to the Church Digital are male. 97%. Like, I have to work hard, it feels like, to get 97% of men to engage and no women. But we're very open to this. And so, like, I just would love to maybe start the conversation with you all. Do you feel this tension of being like in a male dominated environment? Let me just open up, let anybody share as they feel like, what do you feel or see when you look at being a woman in digital ministry today? Amanda, you want to kick us off? I'll make you the guilty one up front here, and let's get the others to engage in.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start and say I don't think it's industry issue. Physical ministry, online digital ministry, like they're just, you don't see many women represented, and I would say it's just a problem that we have in general. And I ask myself that I have such a packed answer, so I'm so hesitant to start because I don't like, once I get going, like I have a hard time. I have a lot to say on this. So I don't want to like start off, but I would say just to simply start off, like I really just think that it is just an issue in your physical churches, in your typical like, brick and mortar ministries, and it translates online. Yeah, so I'm having a hard time answering that without going off on my tangent. I want to, I don't want to just go off and take over, but.
So you're going to save the bullets for a little bit. That's cool. I respect that. Thank you.
Okay,
Nicole, what I cut you off earlier. I apologize. What were you going to say?
No, I was definitely thinking, I was like, okay, not all of us at the same time. When has that ever happened that three women in the room didn't have something to say at the same time? But I'm just like, let's get it. So yeah, aside from, I love how Amanda kicked that off because it has become a societal expectation. We hear ministry, they're expecting the male version of it. And then for the lack of leadership representation, we don't have anyone out there doing it to say, okay, it's possible for me to go do it. So who's guiding me if I'm guiding everybody else? Who's going to feed into me if I'm feeding everybody else? So you have this place where you're like, I'm hesitant to go out there and do that. And so you can't find us because there's no one out there for us to come under to be represented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anne, you would agree with that?
Absolutely, I would agree with that. And I think, I never knew that being a pastor, that leading a ministry like this was something that I was able to do. I grew up in an environment where that was a man's job. And so it didn't even occur to me, like when I was a young child, I didn't say I want to grow up and be a pastor. But yet here I am doing something that I didn't even know was available to me in those formative times. It wasn't until, much later in life that I realized, oh, God has a calling on my life, and it's more than what I have served in ministry. It looks different than what I thought it could possibly be. And so I think, from my situation, I didn't even know that was something that was available to me as a woman. And so, just like you said, that it's, we don't have those kinds of examples to look to, many of us, and especially in the digital space, because that is so new, we have even fewer examples. So.
Yeah. Anne, excuse me, not Anne, Pastor D shares here, feels like all of ministry is male dominated. The last industry to accept women in general. It's interesting. I never actually considered that. Male dominated, yes. the last industry to really accept that. Does that resonate across the crowd as you look at that, the last industry to accept women? How let's be personal here for a second. How's that make you feel? Like how do you respond to maybe that idea?
Oh, can I take it, ladies?
Go ahead.
So we're going to take it biblically. And if I'm wrong, y'all tell me. But the Lord said that the first shall be last and the last shall be the first. So it's coming. And I hope that our male counterparts are ready.
Uh-oh. I'm suddenly very afraid. Wow. So what do we... Is the problem, as was described, that there was no, little Anne as a child had no vision for wanting to do something like this because it wasn't on the table. I tell the story. I wanted to be a digital pastor when I was 12 years old as an eighth grader, 1988, 89. And so like I've had that vision for 25, 35 years of my life. But is the problem really that it just wasn't on the table? The girls didn't know that was an option. Like, is that the source of this? Are there other things that we need to look at?
I think I would say for me that is definitely where it started. But then what I needed was the opportunity to have some mentors in my life that kind of rewired my thinking around that area. And mentors that were men, because, most pastors, most people in ministry are men. And so just in general, what I needed in order to shift my thinking were men that gave me that opportunity to step into my pastoral calling that they recognized it in my life before I did. And we need more of those men to be fostering up women and calling out the calling that is on their lives and then making space for them to live that out. Because without that space, without that renewing of our minds, if we've been told that we can't, that this is not available to us, then we don't even know any better. We can't even see that is a possibility.
Yeah. And that pathway to leadership is not designed with a female in mind. The types of supports that I would need would be different from the types of supports that my counterpart would need. So just even in looking at that, like how are you set up to assess leadership within this community of believers that are given the mantle of pastoralship? And then let's just add that it's digitally. Like we're not adding, we're stating and maintaining that it is digitally. So there's not a process for that. So I may have the world's greatest mentor, renowned book writer, but he doesn't know how to lead me digitally, nor as a woman.
Pastor D says here, the persecution is real. Now, I actually, and I'm not calling Pastor D out, but I've seen this word persecution a couple of times, and I'm just going to be honest right here. The male part of me, I love you, Pastor D. The male part of me is like, whoa, persecution. Like to me, that's a freaking strong word. In that, and so humbly, I'm asking this question: do you all feel persecuted? Do you feel like there's Amanda? I didn't even finish the question. You're shaking your head. Yes, Amanda, talk to me a little bit. What are you feeling here when it comes to persecution?
Yeah, I did switch my mic because I was told by my husband that it was the wrong one. So do I sound okay now?
You sound much better, and thank you, Pastor Susie, for stepping in.
I had no idea I had the wrong one. Okay, good. Anyways, yes, I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I have a similar story to Anne, but honestly, it's kind of flipped. So it's similar, but yet very different. I grew up in the Assemblies of God, which does support women in pastoral roles and whatnot. Granted, every church is different. And so I grew up, I saw examples of amazing godly women in leadership and, still struggling with some persecution, even in a denomination that supports them. But I was like, I can do this. And for me, I just wanted to be a worship pastor. I went to school for worship ministry, and obviously sometimes God changes, things unexpectedly. Never thought I would be leading a church for gamers online. But it wasn't until I became a pastor online that I was like, oh, I'm a controversy. Like people aren't for women pastors. People don't like that I'm a pastor. Like I didn't know that this was a thing. Like I didn't understand. And then I really began to struggle with it because, it was just how I was raised. And I'll be honest, I didn't know anything different. And so I began to second guess myself, second guess my calling. And it wasn't until I studied myself and I went, I was like, what? I hear all of these voices. I hear all of these voices online, whether they're nice voices, unkind voices, just telling me what I can and cannot do in ministry. I'm going to go and I'm going to figure this out for myself. And so I sought out, some women that I know who are in ministry and fight for women in ministry, reading books, studying scripture. And then I found confidence in scripture that, I can be a woman in ministry, top ministry, leadership positions, like a pastor or, anything of the like. But I faced so much persecution. I even faced persecution, I would say a week or so ago, because we do live streams for our church. And I was just hosting service and there was somebody in chat spamming 2 Timothy 2, all the verses of women and stuff. And I was like, I'm just talking to people. I'm just here talking to people. And I have people, spamming chat. That literally happened 2 weeks ago. I've had somebody join our Discord server in the church, send me a DM again with the 2 Timothy 2 and then leave our server, immediately after. And I'm like, who are you? Why? What are you trying to accomplish with that? And I had never faced all of this to the extent that I have as I have being online. And because you're open and available to the entire internet, right? Where there's so many opinions, there's so many people with good, bad intentions, who can keyboard warrior and say whatever they want to you and feel like they have no, repercussions to it or whatever. Granted, it also happened to me in in-person ministry before I even was remotely close to doing online ministry. But I could go on about it, but I would say, there's definitely a lot of that floating around, and especially online, it is so easy for somebody to just and hit send and, it's really frustrating.
And Nicole, would you agree with that the keyboard warriors, so to speak, it's maybe escalated a little bit higher in digital than in physical? Anne, go ahead.
I would say for sure it has in my experience. The interesting thing for me is that I definitely started out in person before moving to digital ministry and pastoring and things like that. And, from the time I began moving into my calling and stepping into my calling, I noticed that there were certain people that would speak differently to me than they would to my male counterparts. And when we move on to digital, yes, there are those people that will just type out a comment, just not even knowing me, not even listening to anything that I'm saying, but just type out that comment. But the beautiful thing is that I can delete that comment and I can block that person. But in person, I cannot do that. And so for me, the digital space is a little bit easier because there you can create more boundaries around it. But when you're in person, you just sometimes don't have anywhere else to go, right? And so yes, I have definitely felt that. But I have felt like it's easier, it's more frequent, I would say, in the digital space, but it's easier to create some boundaries around the people that really want to engage that conversation, but most of them don't. To your point, most of them do not. They just want to prove something and then leave. So there's no kind of correspondence or discussion that goes on with that. But for sure, I have found that to be true.
Nicole, you feeling that too?
Yeah, I feel that. I'm listening, and when you said persecution, I think about all the missionaries that I saw come through in person in church, and they would talk about persecution, and its purpose is to stamp out a movement. And so, if God, we know God, not even if, but we know that God is using us, and to embark upon this very different missionary field, then the persecution has to come some way. Because if I feel safe and feel brave in this space to ask my questions about Jesus, then there has to uprise a keyboard warrior to try to stamp out what's happening. How else would you do war on the internet? And so warfare, just the same, which falls same in persecution. If I'm being persecuted, it's time for warfare. It's preparation, letting me know that, hey, whatever message God has that's coming through me, it's going where it's supposed to go, and it's doing what it's supposed to do, because here comes persecution.
Wow. Well, I mean, you're painting a graphic picture, Pastor D. The more visible, you're more visible online, and the hater spammers and also have easier access to you. The keyboard warrior that dropped the bomb and run. I hear that and I'm like, coward. Like, if you're going to drop a bomb, at least stick around for the fight. Stand up to that. But I'm a man, so forgive me for that. But let me ask, in all seriousness, digitally. And it's like all of you organizationally, and you probably have the best ecosystem around you. But, Nicole, I know the Church Digital's played a big part in your ecosystem.
Yes.
Amanda, you've got a team around you with XP Church. But in those moments when you're in the middle of this persecution, we're in the middle of this attack, where do you go? How do you withstand this? Who do you talk to? How do you overcome that situation? Pastor D, I would even love to know your take on that. So any of you ladies, how do you withstand some of this persecution, some of these attacks?
I think for me, I have an amazing team around me. And what I often find is that when I'm online, before I even have the chance to respond to it, they are responding for me. And I just find so much comfort in that. But then I also have sought out other women in ministry that I can go to say, hey, is it just me? Am I overreacting to this situation? I don't want to be considered that emotional woman that is taking things too seriously. I want to make sure that I am level-headed, that I'm thinking clearly. And so to be able to have some other women in ministry to go to for support has been absolutely a game changer. And then to have other people around me that are speaking the truth to the lies, even on my behalf, even before I can get to the comments, absolutely is helps to protect my soul and helps to protect my mind from the things that I'm reading.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that?
My aspects work a little differently. So I picked this up from an in-person gathering. When someone was getting ready to speak at this IRL gathering, the individual would go to the prayer chapel, and a group of people would be in there praying for that person, and then they would go speak. And when they went to speak, there's always someone in that same prayer chapel praying over them as they speak. And then when they come back, there's someone to pray them down. So whenever I have to do any type of ministry, there is a team of people praying over those dates before they even get here. Then there's a team that prays over me. There's a team that's praying when it's happening. And then there's a team praying me down. And even in the midst of that, the first and foremost is that this is a mantle. We can't forget that. And with every mantle comes a host of heavenly angels. They've got it covered. Y'all can do what you like. You're not going to get to me unless you come through the Father. And I don't think you're going to make it. So I'm just like, okay. And then I do have a spiritual mother. I do. I do. And I'm just like, hey, just like Anne said, I'm like, did I miss it? Or did they come for me? Like, you know, in kids' terms, you know, I'm in youth ministry. I'm like, bet. So we level up, we fast, we pray some more, and we come again. And I'm like, okay, let's try this again.
Anything to add to that, Amanda?
Yeah, for me, it's been huge to have my husband being so vocally and like just obviously supportive of me being a pastor. Our team is all for it as well. Our church, you know, majority of the people in our church are, and there was actually a few weeks ago, I preached on the topic of a woman's role in marriage. Funny enough, considering this conversation today, it was, it was good. But our team was literally prepared, just in case while Amanda is preaching on this topic. And I don't preach often; it's very, very rare. But while Amanda is preaching, if there's anybody who comes in the chat, spamming the usual, like 2 Timothy, we are going to be ready to support her, have her back, and correct that in the chat. And they were ready. They were ready. Surprisingly, no one actually said anything, which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, knowing I have a team that has my back, I have an incredible mentor who is a pastor. She has been huge, just a huge encouragement in my life. I have friends who are also in ministry. Like I have a friend who's literally a missionary on her way to the mission field as we speak. And so just surrounding myself with women and having a team that has my back, my husband, it's just all of that has been huge for me. Yeah.
I'm curious, and I'm going to get to Ukulele's comment here in a second, but before I do that, does your support team need to understand digital? Like, Nicole, you're talking about your spiritual mother speaking this thing, and you've got a group of ladies that you work with. Do they understand digital, or is it just they approve of digital in that you're doing ministry? Like, are they digital savvy? I'm just wondering kind of the strength of that, because you're really, I mean, to be honest, you're kind of bucking the system in two different areas. One, you're women, and the second, you're doing it in a non-physical environment. And so how much does that come into play as you're looking for a support system? Nicole, you want to go first?
Sure. You see where I'm like, don't do it. Okay. So, yeah. So no, I would say no, because in the team, there's mixed people. There are people who fully know what this means, what it looks like, and are like proactively thinking what's going to come against me. There are people that have no understanding of what I'm doing. They just know that God has blessed me to do it, and this is how they can support me. And then you have those people that know just enough to be dangerous. So the team is very, very mixed. And I feel like we don't always know what the pastor is going to get up and preach on, but we know it's going to be a message from God. That's where my team rests.
And does that resonate with you?
For sure. And I think, one of the things that I wanted to do as I was stepping into this digital space was to invite other women to come along with me. And, I let them know early on, I'm like, I don't really know exactly what this is going to look like, but let's do it together. And so there were 3 women that started this organization from the ground up. And so definitely they understood everything about all of the nuances of being digital, and they have been involved, very, very intricately with that. But also just for me, other women in ministry that just look out for my heart. There's no digital component to that. It's just looking out for me and my heart and how I'm doing spiritually. And so I think both is important. You have to have a digital understanding in order to understand what it's like to be a woman that works in a very male-dominated space. And so I think it's both for me.
Yeah.
Ukulele says here, and I'm curious y'all's take on this. Another layer, things we offer for women at church are about marriage, parenting, and prayer, not as often about leadership, deep Bible study, etc. Would you all agree to this, or care to share an opinion on that? Amanda, you're shaking your head yes pretty strongly. Why don't you kick it
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. I think just churches in general, yeah, there just needs to be more intentionality to teach and train women in ministry. But I think it also starts with like, does that church support it? Because I think we all know, like, there are just a lot of people, a lot of churches out there that just genuinely don't believe that it's right. So I think that that is, of course, the first hurdle. But then when you do find a church that does support it, how intentional are they to empower, encourage, teach, train those women, not just to lead the children's ministry, but like, or a women's ministry, which of course, all of that is so good. And like, I mean, I lead our women's ministry in our church. But taking that step further, yes, you can be a pastor, not just to children and other women. Like, you can lead, you can be a spiritual figure in the church and in your ministry in more ways that, you may think or believe or have been told. And yeah, I would definitely agree that there hasn't been enough of that available to women in churches, and just in general. I know I did a Bible study because I was like, you know what, I want to take women along in this journey. And so we actually did a Bible study on the topic, in our church. We do small groups in our church, and we did one semester was on a book that is on the topic, and we just dove deep into the topic together, and we talked about it. And I think it really helped and encouraged a lot of women in the church going through that book and that Bible study in that way. And I think, yeah, we just need more of that. And what I heard often was, wow, like, I've been so confused on this topic. I felt led to ministry and led to leadership, but I was just always so confused. I always just never understood, could I actually do it? And, it really helped and encouraged them. And, even some of them after that are now in, like, leading small groups and beginning to step into leadership positions. And so it just doesn't even have to be big. Like, start at least with something small, like a place for them to learn and to grow and to feel empowered, and it can grow from there and multiply from there. But yeah, I would definitely agree that there needs to be more of that.
Does that resonate, Anne?
Absolutely. And I also think that, it's important, like I was sharing with my own story, that you have some men that are willing to lift you up, that are willing to let you go. But then as a woman who is moving in those spaces, I need to be bringing other women along with me as well, and helping to draw those gifts out of them and give them a place where they can discover their calling as well. And sometimes I think that as women, we can get very insecure about the places that we hold and the positions that we hold. And we think, I've got to hold on to it, because if I do anything, it may be taken from me. And instead, I think we need to have more of a posture of open hands and really trust that God is inviting us to bring other people along on the journey. That is that process of discipleship. And so as women, we need to be intentionally sowing into other women and bringing them along as well when we do enter those spaces.
Yeah. Nicole, I've heard you talk about some
Yes,
of that before,
like,
open-handed.
I got rock on. I'm like, yes.
Go ahead, share with me.
Even, at this stage of maturation, yes, I have a woman in front of me who I'm helping push forward. I have one behind me that I'm paving the way, and two to walk alongside me, my Aaron and my Her. And I teach that to kids too, because that's important. Like, there is something to be said about how all the apostles had this impartation moment. And if we're not doing that, then we know it doesn't die, but there's a reason why you're accumulating this wisdom and this understanding. This is a reason why you have this mantle, and it is built for relationship. Like, it is God's gift to us that we would give it. The overflow is meant to be given. You can't give if you're empty, so definitely be full, but you should be doing that. Like, that never stops. And I challenge them to do it at all ages, and all stages of maturation. Like, you should have that, because that's how you achieve spiritual growth. That's how we have these people we can say, was that just me, or did I miss that? Was there a different revelation that time when I said that than before? There's people that can say that and check that. And then there's that growth that happens for them. And then you get that exponential growth, in discipleship, which I love, like what Anne was talking about, because you were never meant to do this alone. It may have been a conversation between you and God, but once it's downloaded, it becomes a conference.
Interesting. I'm gonna do something, and to be honest, I didn't. When thinking through this interview, this thought didn't really even occur to me until literally in this conversation. And so this may be perceived as rude. This may be perceived as not a good thing. Don't you love when people like precede the comment by saying stuff like this? Like here with the stream, especially with the live, because if this tanks, we will totally edit this out, and this will not make on demand. And so if you're watching this live, you get the unfiltered version. Know that in advance. But through the church digital, and I'm very vocal on my own story, and this is where it's danger, because I'm paralleling my story to you all, and I don't mean that in any way. That is not what I'm trying to do. For 25 years, I banged my head against the wall because I was trying to help physical churches understand the power of digital, and like even freaking through COVID, they couldn't figure it out, and so we pivoted. We walked away from the church mindset and instead started adopting this idea of the digital missionary, which is now the Digital Missionary Conference and everything else. And moving away from the church and moving from it's interesting. I told a donor last night, I was like, it was like we were doing B2B, business to business, working straight with churches. But by going to digital missionary, we pivoted and we went to a B2C, a business to consumer model, where now we're working straight with individuals instead of trying to go through churches. And it's been like a clear sailing, blue skies, blue ocean, whatever the analogy is that says it's been a sprint and it's been a joy. It's been that way. And so I'm thinking about this, bear with me. And I started thinking back of historically. Actually, my mother was very active growing up in WMU, Women's Missionary something, whatever, I don't know. But like for her, she spent a lot of time talking about missionaries. And so I went on Google and I Googled Christian women missionaries to pull up some of these names. Elizabeth Elliot, of course, in the 1900s, and she died in the 2000s. Books about her. Lottie Moon as a Southern Baptist. This woman in the 1800s and early 1900s was defining missionary work. Is there opportunities missionally with more towards this? Is that moving away from a male-dominated church environment? Is it a good thing to lean away and work straight with the individuals? Is that a bad thing? I'm just looking at maybe missional is easier, but that may not make it better. And so what's your take on that? I'm open to whoever would go first on this, but would being more of a missionary instead of a church, is that the right play for women in 2025?
I think that it is traditionally more accepted because women are helpers, they're servers, they're servants, they are coming alongside and helping. And really we often fail to see the intersection between a missionary and a pastor. I don't see that those two things are that different, because a pastor should also be someone that serves, that loves, that shows compassion, that works with groups of people, like all of that. But for some reason, there is a stigma where the word pastor is used in conjunction with women. So yes, I think that there are not very many people that would say women should not be missionaries. Absolutely, they should be missionaries, but they can't be a pastor. And so I think that if we stop getting hung up on terminology and become more concerned with where God is moving women individually in their lives, I think it's important for us to follow the calling wherever it leads. You could call me a missionary, you could call me a pastor, you could call me a nonprofit leader. I don't care what you call me. I just know that I am called to take the gospel to people and to reignite a passion for discipleship. And I think we get so interested in labeling people and categorizing people to appease the different boxes that we put people in, that we end up limiting, like in my case, we end up limiting what we say people can do. I was raised in a missionary household, so we lived in Nigeria when I was young. I knew that I could become a missionary if I wanted to become a missionary. I couldn't be a pastor, but I could be a missionary. And those two things are very much, in my mind, very similar. Pastors should be missionaries. Missionaries should be pastoral. But we just put those specific labels and then categorize people where it makes us comfortable.
Yeah. Amanda, as you're hearing that, what are you thinking on maybe some of these labels?
Yeah, I mean, I think labels, I think Anne really just nailed it, honestly. I think labels really are the issue, you know. It's so strange, like women can be called directors but not pastors, but they're doing the same exact thing. What changes
Right.
is the title. And so yeah, I I resonate with all of what Anne said, and I just want to echo that. I really think the title is really the issue. I don't think it should be one or the other. You know, at the end of the day, I think people are going to have an issue with titles, just period. No matter what they believe, what their thoughts are, whatever. I think you just have to stay true to what God is calling you to do and be confident in that, and just move forward with whatever that is, whether it is a pastor or a missionary. You know, and so yeah.
You know, I could see where the U.S. church, the North American church, may have, has pivoted more towards a male-dominated version of leadership, as with the title of pastor, and I'm loosely saying the word corrupted. I don't mean, but I think I don't mean that graphically, but I think the idea shifted away from more of the pastor being more of a high capacity leader as opposed to a shepherd, even a teacher. Like I remember, I tell this story occasionally. I was on a church staff, and we were like maybe 30 pastors, and it was a large church. And every pastor that was on staff with this church, if they'd taken the APEST, they would have been like an 80 to 90% apostolic. And so it was like a very driven, very type A, very extreme staff environment. And it was funny. Like I was actually probably the most shepherd teacher on staff among everybody else, because it was all strong apostolics, which was almost a joke, because if you know me, like there ain't no shepherd in me in that. And so and working in that strong environment, you're starting to miss like the other parts of APEST, and working in that male dominated, you're really missing some of the complementary parts of how a woman can help to complete the process. So ukulele says here, let me draw attention to this. We have to be going and doing what God calls us to do. We can adjust the label, but be careful not to adjust the mission to be more palatable to humans. And so it's not. I think that's a good call. We don't want to lose sight of the mission of what we're called to.
Yeah.
Anne, let me ask you, because you're reaching globally. I'm guessing Amanda's reaching globally as well, but oftentimes people hide behind the usernames, and it's harder to really figure out who's who. But Anne, like, who you're reaching. You're building relationships with predominantly a lot of people in Africa and other nations. Do other nations globally, do they struggle with women pastor, with women leader, as strongly as you see in North America? Is it globally as much of an issue as maybe you're feeling here domestically?
The answer is no, they do not. And that is one of the things that brings me great joy and satisfaction with the ministry with which I get to work. I hardly hear any of those comments. I hardly get any of those comments from people that are engaging globally. Many of my people are from Africa, from Pakistan, different places, and it's not an issue. It's you are called and you are equipped and you are prepared and gifted to teach the word of God, and I am going to learn. And there's an attitude that I think is often missing here in the US, that they realize that they can learn anytime, anywhere from anyone. And there's a humility there. And one of the things that I have loved is to be able to see, remember I said that some of them will comment in the comments before I even get there. And it's usually my international people that are commenting and that are correcting the mistruth and just the hurtful statements that are made on my behalf. And so I would say, definitely in my experience, it is a United States Western centered mindset that I do not see in much of the global parts that I engage with.
Amanda, have you had any experience globally that would you agree with what Anne said there? Like, what has your experience been globally on Twitch and Discord?
Yeah, majority of the people we do reach are in the United States, but we do reach people all over the world, Australia, United Kingdom, Europe and whatnot. And to my knowledge, all the people who are outside of the US, they don't seem to mind. If anything, actually, I know one of the Australian women that I know in our church, she's always like hungry for more women representation in ministry leadership, and she always tells me you should preach more, because she's hungry to see more women in that kind of role and position, leading in such a way spiritually. So yeah, I would have to agree with that for sure.
No, I love that. I didn't know that for a fact, but that doesn't surprise me that global is more supportive of that. And it's I forget, Anne, I remember sending this to you. I think it was Rick Warren. Rick Warren was doing some research, and he did a YouTube video on Lausanne, and he was talking about global movements, and he had done research, or his research team did research on why global movements fail. And what he had found is that the majority of global movements that have failed over the past X number of years, couple centuries, were dominated by white male-centric leadership, was, I think, the stat that he came up with. And that it was working in international contextualization and working in women into leadership. Both of those things contributed to a more of a global impact or extending impact beyond to get to a movement level. And so, like, I was funny. I remember forwarding that. Actually, I forwarded that to Angela Craig first, and then sent it to Anne. Angela was one of the pioneers in this space too, doing digital church for a decade or so before she shifted over to education. What was her church? Her church was, Pursue Church Live. That was her church on Facebook for years. So, I mean, let me ask. And that's one reason I said, that's one of the reasons why, I'm not patting myself on the back, but the Church.digital, Barbara Carnero. To be honest, Barbara Carnero tells me I'm wrong on a regular basis, and she's never wrong when she corrects me. And so, like, I do not mind that. And Stacy's on our senior leadership as well, with as our chaplain. And we are. I am always looking for people who don't look like me and think like me on leadership. Let me ask this question: How I mean, I'm going to ask two questions back to back. First, how do we solve this at the big level? Do we solve this at the big level? And then maybe a follow-up question would be, how do we solve this like individual? What's one or two steps we can do today to start to move in that direction? And so, Anne, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I would just say individually, I think all of us need to develop a sense of humility and curiosity. That those are two things that I find often, unfortunately, are lacking within the church structure. And especially, when you get onto a digital space, people feel very empowered to just say what they know and to be very certain about it and put their comment on there and then leave or whatever. And what I would encourage people to do is to develop a sense of humility to say, I can learn something from anybody. So let me hear what this person has to say. Even if it makes me uncomfortable, even if it's from a different perspective. So many times we want to get in an echo chamber with people that think the same way that we think and approach life the same way that we approach it, so that we can hear things that confirm our own biases and our own thoughts. But when you hear a woman speaking, when you hear somebody of color speaking, when you hear somebody that's in a different station of life with different experiences speaking, you're going to be able to hear things that may make you uncomfortable for a while and challenge your thinking, but with some humility and with some curiosity. I think that we are going to allow more and different voices to speak to us in a way that we will really receive it. So I think that is, humility and curiosity on an individual level. But I also think that what would that look like on a systems level on an organizational level, that those are things that we prioritize within our churches, within our ministries, within our constructs, within our algorithms, even that we would hear things that we don't always agree with. But we have this sense of curiosity to say, God, what might you be teaching me through these people that may not be exactly like me?
Yeah, it takes humility to not know the answer. It takes humility to be open-handed like that. And so I could see where a lot of pastors, a lot of men might have problems with that. I mean, that's been something, to be honest, I've learned that the hard way. Let's just say it that way. That would be my story. So I agree with you there on that, Anne. Amanda, as we're hearing this, like what's big picture, long term? How do we put a dent in this?
Yeah, definitely echo the humility. I think that's like the number one reason, that people who are, just against women, they lack the ability to have a conversation, to hear the other side. And so I think it starts with humility, but then I think like being intentional to create opportunities for women to be celebrated, empowered, encouraged, trained up, not just like, adding on a woman to like, a list of conference speakers just to have like your woman, represented,
Token.
like,
The
like
token female, yes.
Yes, the token female, don't do that, because while, sure, to a degree, we appreciate the thought, it's not necessarily helpful when you do that, but like, seek out women who are truly doing an incredible job in these spaces, celebrate them, invite them to more opportunities so that they can be seen by other people, men and women included. And I think by inviting more women into the space, like these podcasts are great, but what I would love to see is women on podcasts that aren't about women in ministry, like what are you doing as a woman in this space? Like why like what are you up to, like, what is God doing in and through your ministry, to see more of that, so that it's not just like, yes, women can do it, but like, what actually are you doing? Why can women do it? Let's see the proof in the pudding. Like, let's see what God is doing in and through what he has called you to. And so I would love to see that, of course, women supporting women, but I also think it is so incredibly important for men to be supporting women in these roles as well, because women have each other's backs, but I feel like we'll constantly be fighting against the grain if men are also being intentional to invite us into those same leadership spaces, especially if it's so male dominated. They have to make room for us, because I don't know about you, like, I'm not interested in fighting my way in. I'm not that type of person. I'm not trying to like insert myself when I'm not wanted. So I think men creating that space for women to, be celebrated, encouraged, trained up, to have that opportunity is so important. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll give testimony to this. The Church Digital, some of the shorts that we produce, the short, and Stacy's one of our regular producers. The shorts that she produces typically rank in our top. Like when she does it, they perform very well, which is interesting because my subscribers are 97% male, but they're resonating with some of the ideologies what she's talking about. I'd say the same thing, and we've done some clips with you historically through podcasts and other things that we've done, and Anne does well with that. I would, I've often said, I don't know that I'm the future of the Church Digital. A white bald man with a beard, I don't think is really going to be the leader of an organization, a global movement organization. I think it's somebody else is gonna pick the reins up and run with this. But as much as we can empower, as much as we can enable women, as much as we can enable different cultures, and empower them to do ministry, encourage them to, like, that's, I try at a personal level. I try to get my platform up on a regular basis, and Nicole has benefited from that, and historically, I hope would say she's benefited from that. Actually, it was interesting. I was talking about Angela Craig earlier. Angela, I hope it's okay that I tell this story, but I sent her that story I was talking about, Rick Warren, and I said to her, thank you for pioneering in this space and doing this work to help create a movement. And she replied back, Angela, I apologize if I shouldn't have said this, but she said something to the extent of, thank you for giving me your platform and the opportunity to be heard by an audience that doesn't listen. And that's been a sad reality for me, is like there are pastor friends in my ecosystem that are like, why are you highlighting women pastors? That's not biblical. Like I've gotten hate email off some of this stuff. It's interesting. I've had a lot of engagement in this conversation, and chat actually has been really positive. But I was half expecting some negative to come around, because that does happen on occasion. Even in our ecosystems. And so, I want to thank you all for being the pioneers, for leading into this space. We say here at the Church Digital, pioneers get shot, settlers get rich. And so you guys are paving the way for some other missionaries and some other planters and other women to benefit from this in the future. But let me ask this question. Today in 2025, it's March, right? It is March, right? March 15th, 17th, somewhere around there. Okay, we're good. I know what month we're in. It's a step in the right direction. By 2026, in the next 8 months, we want to move the bucket forward. We want to take a step in the right direction. What do we need to do? How do we elevate this so it's not a problem? What can we do in the next year to help bring about a solution, or a step in the solution in the right space? What do y'all think?
I would love to see each ministry leader, male or female, find someone and appreciate the greatness and the God-given talent within them and then replace themselves. I hope that I will, in the next year and a half, continue finding other women, continue finding people who are called into different areas of ministry. And Jeff, just like you were saying, giving up the platform and allowing them to be able to use their gifts and talents in a way that they may not have even thought possible, or nobody ever gave them that opportunity. And so whether it's a digital platform, whether it's a pulpit, whether it's a Sunday school class, whether it's a small group, whatever that is, find a woman, appreciate the greatness and the gifts within her, and then give up a little bit of your power so that she can step into the greatness that God created her for.
Wow. Well said. Apprenticing, multiplying yourselves into others, men and women. Beautiful. Amanda, you want to go next? Simple steps.
Yeah. Echo that. I think
I should never let Anne go first because she's
so good.
So eloquent. It's like, okay, what she said.
Yeah, but for real, what she said. But yeah, just to back that up, like even just in the circles that I'm in, I see people coming together and, they're creating like leadership teams and, there's conferences and there's podcasts and, all I keep thinking is there's so many capable women that I just don't see being invited or even considered for any of this, and that just it just makes me sad, to see that. And I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I just think that it's just become so natural, and just what happens. I don't even. It's just so, yeah. Like I don't even know how to explain why, but. Yeah, just seeing that makes me really sad, and just I would love to see more women being invited into these teams, into these roles, like into these spaces again, like echoing what Anne said, just like celebrating them in the God's gifts that He has given them and their greatness, and sharing some of that power, that ability, that leadership, that opportunity with just men and women. I think is just important, if we want to see any of this change.
Yeah.
That's good. Nicole?
I was listening and I was like, okay, what do you say? Because I feel like echo definitely, and like that was every item I had rolled in my head for this moment. But what I would like to see is, I've often been told that I had to become the mentor that I was seeking because there wasn't one available. So what I would like to see is more opportunities for ministers in general. I can have a him and a her, a him, a her, a him. To me, it's who God sends to me, and I can't control that. And if I'm trying to control that, then it's not who God is sending, because I'm never in control. And so to have the ability to feed into a pool of people, whether it's, like she said, apprenticeships, internships, come alongside ministry, just spotlighting you in my ministry. Not that you have to be doing what I'm doing, but the fact that you're doing it to highlight that in my ministry. It's going to take many parts, and we know that because the body is made up of many members, and we were to come together. So that meant that at some point I'm going to be with somebody who may be IRL, who may be phygital, and there's something that they're doing that's going to help me propel them and me. And that's why we're supposed to connect. There's a click that happens. So I would love to see opportunities to create a global knowledge bank of people that we could say, hey, we're getting ready to do this. Put your applications in for digital, just like they do for in-person. Here's everything that we can teach on. What do you want to teach?
Yeah, I love that, and I mean, I'd love to say if you're a woman, if you're in this digital ministry space and you're looking for that ecosystem, you're looking for that friendly environment, you got it here. Come hang out with us over at the Church Digital, and let's get something going. I'm half tempted to tell Nicole to abandon Gen A and Gen Z and help me start the Church Digital women's ministry. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I mean there's two sides of the coin where Gen A Gen Z needs to figure this out, but the Church Digital, and I wasn't planning, Nicole, I wasn't planning on saying that. That's literally
Yeah.
in this moment is there needs to be
Yeah.
there needs to be a stronger voice, and listen, it doesn't need to be me. I mean, this is truly a space where we need to start to platform others in the space to represent well, and it needs to be a woman to encourage and to empower women in this space. And
Yeah.
so if you're looking for that encouragement, come hang out with us. Nicole, we're
Yeah.
gonna have to offline this conversation, and
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
usually our conversations are fun. We'll have to see what
The
comes up
alpha
along the way.
conversations are always great. And let me
Always
just
fun.
add that my number one thing, my life verse, and it has never changed. The Lord has not given me another verse since He gave me this one, is for such a time as this. My person in the Bible is Esther. I believe they were all created for something, and there's a specific time that that's supposed to be accessed. So if this is that time and you feel like God is nudging you, that you're, like He's clearing the buffet table so that you can come with your dessert to the table, then this is what you need to do. Like, find your people or find people and just get in, because they'll help you
Yeah.
find your people. You know,
Mhm.
the
Fi- fi-
church
Find your
digital
people,
is the
find your
connection.
family. I love that. I
Yes.
love that. Very,
Mhm.
very good. Hey, as we're wrapping up here, went a little long, but I thank you for the extra time. But just any closing thoughts, Amanda? You want to go first?
Oh gosh. I'm not prepared. No, I, just want to, any women listening, God has created you with purpose. He has a plan for your life. You have gifts, and whatever those gifts are, He has, already prepared. My one of my favorite verses is Ephesians 2:10. For we are Christ, for we are God's masterpiece, created in Him to do good works, which He prepared in advance for us to do. Like God has prepared you to do great, incredible works,
Amen.
and whatever that may be, figure it out if you haven't already, and find a way to step into that. If you need to seek out mentors and other women to come alongside you, well, at just a period, you should have that in general. But however you need to step into that, be confident that women can be in ministry, women can be in leadership positions. I know there are a lot of voices out there, but the biggest voice that you need to listen to is God's, and what He's calling you to do. That is what you need to listen to, and be obedient to, not what other voices will try and tell you. So be encouraged with that.
Well, I tell you what, if that's you talking unprepared, I'd hate to see your sermons when you actually have some time to prep. That was pretty good right there, Amanda. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nicole, you want to go next?
Yes, yes. So I feel like Amanda spoke to your future, so I'm going to speak to your present. If you're feeling the press, if you know that this calling is everywhere you go, you get on platforms and people are like, hey, can you help me understand? I have questions about faith. I need to talk to you about this. God is calling me to do this. Then that is where you operate. We are all given a mission field, and we're all given a person of peace that we're to interact with. Step out on faith and start interacting, because God says all we have to do is open our mouth and He will speak. All you have to do is obey and He will command. You make a plan, He'll order the steps. Just take the first step. And I know that God is there with you. And we're all here. This video will be accessible and you can come back and get this knowledge. So just do it. Just do it. Like, Hope Nike doesn't come for me, but just do it.
Awesome. And Nike, if you are interested, her email address is Nicole, N-I-C. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Yeah, the Church Digital is not responsible for any of the opinions shared. No, I'm kidding. All right, Anne, as we're wrapping up here, closing thoughts.
So Amanda spoke to the future and Nicole spoke to the present. I'll speak to the past.
Wow.
Women, I want you to know that you are enough. The voices that told you in your past that you are not enough, they didn't see who you are. And you are enough. You are enough to do this work that God has called you to. You have enough to do everything that He is calling you toward, and you know enough. It's not that you missed out on an opportunity to learn and now you don't have an opportunity. Women, you are enough, and you have enough, and you know enough. And I just pray that you will rediscover the potential that is within you, and you walk in that fully.
Yes.
Awesome. Wow, that was powerful right there. Normally when I ask that question, people are like, "No, I'm good," but y'all brought the hammer right there at the end. And so I want you to know, ladies, I know your ministry well, and I have the utmost respect for each of you and what you're doing. We've had Pastor G and Pastor D and ukulele hanging out with us in chat as well, and you both as well. I know the ministry. I see the fruit of who you are digitally, and I want to thank all of you for the work that you are doing in your respective ministries. And so, as we're moving forward to Church Digital, I'm excited to do more and to platform more ladies and to be able to allow more of them to share. I would say that with us, you always have a place to be seen and to be recognized for that. And so if you're struggling, connect with us and let you get connected to some people that can help you work through that. Come alongside you. I'm told that's the right thing to say now. Come alongside you and to work through that. I'm trying to work on my language a little bit on that, so I appreciate that. It's a kinder, gentler Jeff these days in 25. So hey, but we're going to land the plane for Amanda, for Nicole. This is Jeff. Oh, Anne. I forgot Anne. I forgot all about Anne. For Anne, this is Jeff with the Church Digital. Thanks for jumping on this podcast. Sign up for the conference, and we'll see you next time on the show. Y'all have a good one.